Hey, what's happening, Cincinnati Bengals fans? Welcome back to Inside the Jungle. Can't believe we're here with episode 5 already. Over the weekend, the Bengals falling to the Indianapolis Colts 31-27 after what we all thought after quarter one was going to be the second victory in Joe Burrow's short career. So we're going to talk about that game, of course. So we're going to look ahead to what should be a fun one as well. And if you want to get in touch with us, if you're watching us live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, we certainly appreciate you doing so. You can always email us insidethejunglepod@gmail.com. And, of course, you can get in touch with us on Twitter as well @InsideJunglePod. Let's welcome in my cast of characters for this week. Mickey, I will start with you. How was your weekend, buddy?
It was good up until, the middle of the second quarter on Sunday. Then things changed drastically, but no, overall it was a good weekend.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. You stayed out of trouble. You weren't, your kids keeping you busy with sporting events?
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I had to go to my daughter's game on Sunday. I watched the beginning of the Bengals game, knowing I would record it. And I left when it was 21-0. So it was a great afternoon until I came back and watched the rest.
Oh, man. Bummer. Sorry to hear that, buddy.
Yeah.
Let's also welcome back to the show Scotty Bantel. Beam me up, Scotty. Scott, how are you?
Doing fantastic, Nick. I'm not playing that well, but the culture here is great.
How's the basement? I know you've been doing some remodeling down there, not by choice.
Yeah, it's coming along. I finally have a working bathroom back again, which is a good thing.
Good.
So it's coming along good. Thanks.
Good. We're glad to have you back on the show. Of course, we can't have an Inside the Jungle without the visiting the West Coast, the best coast, Anthony Cosenza. AC, how are you?
Last and certainly least, right, Nicholas?
No, that is not the case.
I'm doing all right, man. I'm doing all right. We're trying to sort through all this stuff that's going on with the Bengals, and I know we've got a special guest to help us get through all that. So, yeah, just hanging in there. How about you? How are you?
I'm hanging in there. I was watching the game over the weekend with my son, and a lot to be excited for, and then also a lot that I guess wasn't all that surprising. So, as Anthony mentioned, we do have a special guest here on Inside the Jungle. Many of you remember back when we did the show from 2010 to 2016. This gentleman frequented our show quite a bit, and I thought, what better way to bring back the show and have our first guest be this guy? And we are so thrilled and happy to have with us the one and the only Geoff Hobson of Bengals.com joining us. Jeff, welcome back. How are you, man?
Nick, thanks for having me on. It's an honor. I remember when we did this over the phone. You and Anthony and I would do it. We would just do it over the phone, and that would be it. Now we got all this. You get these great graphics.
Yeah, the technology's a lot different now.
Man,
makes it a lot easier to communicate with you for sure.
Yeah, and is it smooth? This is about as smooth as any Zoom call I've been on.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that, Jeff.
I've been on somewhere. It's kind of like seeing Armstrong walk. Those first steps Armstrong took. This is tremendous. You're doing a hell of a job. It's good to see everybody and that everybody's healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. We're really excited to have you back on the show. Like I said, you came on the show so often back in the day, and we couldn't think of anybody better to have you on the show. So let's talk about your first thoughts, right? I mean, we're 5 weeks into the NFL season, 5 weeks into the Joe Burrow era. Yeah. And I mean, he definitely, for the historic season he had last year at LSU, fully knowing for many months that the Bengals were going to take him number one, he certainly has looked the part at quarterback for the Bengals, and at a position where you can argue over the last few years that it's been a position where there's been a lot of questions.
Yeah, I would say, it's easy to get lost in 1-4-1 and all the headlines, but this guy's been, as advertised, and I'm just surprised that, that he doesn't have 2, 3, 4 wins. I know, he should have won the opener, and really, he played well enough to win the opener, played well enough to win in Philly, played well enough to win yesterday or Sunday in Indy, and he needs some help. And but I think, that rookie, the 2019, 2020 classes, it looks like help's on the way. But as you know, Nick, in the NFL, what did Jerry Glanville used to say? Not for long. You know, you gotta at some point they gotta start putting some wins together.
Yeah, and that's been kind of the biggest, I guess, theme of the first 5 games of the season is just right there, but not good enough. Like,
Right.
what if you had to put your finger on it? Like, what is the issue right now?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of it is people are going to say this is an excuse, but I think it's a real factor. It's not the reason; it's one of many reasons. But not being on the field until August with basically a whole new team. I mean, they had 30 new players pulling into the parking lot come August. So they had no spring and they had no preseason games, which is unheard of. And they were probably the worst team in the league it could happen to. If I'm not mistaken, they were the only team to start a rookie quarterback on opening day. And it's not an excuse, but I think it's a factor. And I also think that, I think Scott asked, what's the issue with closing games? And I guess it's all related is, they've got to run, they got to run. To me, a lot of it, the answer is running the ball. And I mean, people always say, that I use that excuse too much. I use that reason too much. But I think if you look at it, if they were running the ball like they did at the end of last year, the second half of 19, when they ran it about as well as anybody, if they were able to run like that now, they could have put that game away easily on Sunday. They've just kept the defense. They just don't bail. In my opinion, they don't get the defense off the field. The defense is on the field too much, and in this day and age, the offense is going to make plays. It's an offensive league. They want the offense to make plays. So the other team just can't have it. You have to keep it from them. You have to play keep away. And I'm not saying grind it out, but I'm saying you have to, you got to be balanced. And I think they are trying to find their identity, and it's with Burrow. And it seems to me they want that identity to be that Burrow is going to carry them. And I'm just not sure that everybody else is up to it, and that that they have to do more around him rather than just have him carry them.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're seeing Burrow throw the ball a ton, right? And it's great to see. Right. He's having some success, but it's a lot to put on a rookie quarterback. Geoff, I'm gonna switch gears a little bit. As one of the gray-haired guys on this podcast, I've been around for a long time, and in the recent weeks, I'm seeing it more this season than the last season. We're seeing some public displeasure from players, right? Like we're seeing Sean Williams, Darius Phillips on Twitter making comments. We're hearing from Dunlap. I'm having some flashbacks to past teams, and just if I ask you a question on, is the coaching staff losing the locker room, what's your response to something like that?
I hear you, Mickey, and I although I can't, and I was talking to TJ Hushmanzad about this last week when I did a podcast with him, because we were talking about AJ's frustrations. Yeah. Well, go back to 15 years ago. That ain't what AJ was doing was nothing what Chad and TJ did every week. We were surprised because AJ never shows it, and so we forget how traumatic or turbulent that was back in 05, 06, 07. I don't think it's like that. There is chirping on social media. I think there is in all 32 towns. I think Zach does have the locker room, because I think the bulk of this, I think what you're seeing is a team in transition. Mm-hmm. And you see it now. Social media gives you the ability to see the raw, uncut version of a transition. And this is what it is, going from one era to the other. And people have to grapple with roles. They have to grapple with new coaches. And, I think it happens all the time, but now I think in this area you see it. And I do think Zach has a locker room because they're in games. To me, the first sign of a coach losing it is when there's no pushback on the field. But these guys have been, except for the Baltimore game, these guys have been in every game. So I don't buy that. But I think, Zach would agree with you. They have to start getting wins. In the end, you only believe in wins. I mean, that's why Marvin sat Carson, because he felt the city, the franchise, the players had to win so they would believe. So he went with Kitna.
Yeah.
So, but I think, we're in a different era now. You got a rookie, you got a guy that you get it, you play your rookie all right away now, most teams. And, I think I think what you're seeing, and there is, there is some noise, but I also think I don't think it's like it was, 15 years ago. And I do think it's probably to be expected in what is, taking place down there. There's a lot of changes down there. I mean, there's, to blow up what Marvin had established, not blow it up, but to make the move from Marvin after 16 years, there were going to be some changes made.
Geoff, I guess I just want to ask this. I mean, I've always been a big why aren't the Bengals active in free agency guy? And this year, obviously, they did a whole bunch of stuff, very uncharacteristic. I don't know if you want to attribute that to Zach Taylor or, just Mike Brown maybe feeling like he's losing the fan base, what have you. But I guess with all of these injuries now, serious injuries, Mike Daniels on IR, Trey Wayne's on IR, Reeder on IR. I know we're talking short-term problems with what Mickey brought up, but I guess long-term, is this something do you see now that the Bengals kind of crawl back into their shell a little bit next year and beyond because of all the injuries they've suffered to their high-priced free agents that they brought in this year?
It doesn't help the argument. Because that was all. Remember, I think they went into after Antonio Bryant. I think they just kind of,
I forgot about him. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, Antonio, and that would do it. I would think that would do it if that was. I guess we should tell the listeners, who are probably some are pretty young, that Antonio Bryant was a free agent wide receiver who never took a snap. He got what they pay him, Anthony. I think they paid him. I think he got $7 million to sign.
Yeah, it was a big contract. Yeah,
big
contract. I think they did it with Coles after, right?
Correct. That's exactly right. I think it was like 4 years, 28. It's what TJ didn't take.
Right.
It's what TJ who wishes now that he did take it. But so it's an interesting question, Anthony. I don't think they go back. I don't think they go back to it. I think they realize that that they made some really good moves. To me, what surprised me, Anthony, the most about Mike doing it was here's a guy, he was born in the Depression, and he made these moves back in March when it was the most uncertain economic outlook of his lifetime, and so it showed to me he wants to win. I also think it showed you just how far that the infrastructure of the roster had fallen, that they felt like they had to rebuild this thing. But I do think that is something they're going to still do, because I think they really attacked what they had to do. They had to get a run stopper in here, and they got Reeder in there and gave them a lot of money. They needed corners, and they got Waynes. And then not only that, but they got guys that they felt like would tackle. And 2018, 2019, these people didn't tackle anybody. And they had Mackenzie Alexander. They paid guys that have gone and tackled. So I think we'll see more of that. I think we'll see more of it. I don't think we're going to see less, because although, Anthony, there's also the thing about the rookie quarterback. That's the beauty of it, is he's got the salary where you can kind of make moves like that too. Because he's on.
Now's the time to do it.
Yeah, now is the time to do it. And I think they know. I mean, they know what they got. And I think that's a major reason they did. They know that Burrow is a guy that can take them all the way, and I think that will be their mindset, for the next 15 years, because I think that's how long Burrow is going to be here.
Geoff, I got a question for you. I'm in multiple text strings during each game, and the main question that and complaint that I see in all of those text strings revolves around the offensive play calling. I know Burrow has looked good. The offense has looked good at times. But it boils down to, some really head scratchers. I think a great one to look at would be last week, the 3rd and 1 run to Piron. Zach Taylor is still calling all of the plays, correct?
Right.
And has there been any discussion about getting Brian Callahan involved in calling plays or giving up those play calling duties?
No, I have not heard anything about that. I'm going back to the 3rd and 1 that began the second half when they had just finished a half dominating them up front, and they threw a pass on 3rd and 1. But that's where I get back, Scott, and I understand what you're saying, and that's where I get back to, because to me those were the 2 plays of the game. To me, that, and I'm a guy, and this just isn't a Zach thing. I go back to Bratkowski.
Yep.
When I talk about this, to me, this has been a problem living and breathing the AFC North, and you guys know this. Hell, I'm not telling you guys anything you don't know. You live it every Sunday. Is that they're just not committed to the run enough, and they never have been. And I don't, and to me, those 2 3rd and 1s, Scott, summarized it. On one of them, they didn't, and on the other one, they couldn't. And I think that's all kind of interrelated, and that's. But I think with Zach, Zach is trying to, he's trying to find an identity, and that's he's a young coach, and he's got this rookie quarterback, and it's not an easy deal in this thing where, the defenses are, they're like, you go from week to week. It's always a different. I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to be able to do it all, because Baltimore, they saw one kind of defense. Last week they saw a different kind of defense. Sunday against Cleveland, it's going to be kind of probably a little bit more like Indy, but there's a lot of aspects to Baltimore. They're pretty aggressive. They're great up front. So I think they're trying to fit their offense to be able to do everything. And I think, and when stuff like that, when stuff at the beginning of something like that, you're trying to do everything, and then you can't do anything. So I think they're in. I hate to say it, but I think it's a work in process. And will they have to change? Will they have to say, look, we can't keep doing this. We gotta run the ball, or just throw the ball. We can't try and do both. But I think there's a school of thought out there that, that thinks they're throwing too much with the rookie quarterback. And how do you? But he's your best weapon. He's got the. That's why you drafted him. You drafted him to throw the ball. So.
And you brought up an interesting point earlier in the conversation with the run. I think last year, the second half of the season, I think Mixon led the NFL, or at least the AFC, in yards after a really slow start. Yeah. This year, at least from an athletic standpoint, they have more talent along the offensive line. What happened between the end of last year and this year in their inability to run the ball all of a sudden again?
I'm not sure. It's a great question, because they ended last season. But I think what happened is they've had some turbulence at right guard in the interior. With they've started 3 right guards, and I think Redmond, has given them a little bit of stability there. And I think that I think they played pretty well last week. So I think that's starting to show up a little bit. I think the line's beginning to. I go back. The running game needs to be almost as timed up as the pass game. And to me, that goes back to, again, not having a May and June. I mean, yes, they did have these guys during that stretch where Joe had, I think he led the league in carries in the last half of the year, which is exciting to me. They led in carries, which I think is the right idea, because he's that kind of back. And then I think, then you get the turbulence at right guard, you get a new left tackle, and you got a rookie quarterback. And and the fact that they didn't get on the field until August, and I think also too, they're trying to get Burrow ready. So what does that mean when you're getting Burrow ready? It means you're throwing the ball, So I'm not, I don't know how much the run game got worked on maybe in years past. When you're trying to get the rookie quarterback ready, that's a factor too. So I think this is nobody wants to hear this, but to me, this is shaping up to be the kind of a year where they're going to go, they're going to go 5-3 or 6-2 or 4-4 or something. They're going to look much better in the second half than they will the first half, because they're young and they didn't get on the field until August. And then hopefully they ride that momentum in the next year. But, fans, I know fans don't want to hear that, but I think the kind of team they had this year and the type of overhaul they had in the offseason, and then to have the pandemic thrown in, I think it just kind of really upset the apple cart.
So we're hanging out with Geoff Hobson from Bengals.com. He's been covering the Bengals for many, many, many years. How many years is it now, Geoff?
Many moons. It's actually off and on for the last 30, off and on.
Man.
But been over with the Bengals for, I mean, that's, all you guys are under 30, so,
No, that's very kind of you, sir.
I wish, man. I wish. Jeez.
Oh, man, that's too funny. So the biggest thing and when the Bengals were up 21-0 over the weekend,
yeah,
and I was watching the game with my son. They had just gotten done with the review of, I think it was a T.Y. Hilton, it ended up being a non-catch on the sideline, which was pretty borderline. Like, I could have seen it going either way, right?
Right.
I said to my son, oh my gosh, like, the Bengals never have these things go their way. Like, they're never up 21-0 necessarily. Like, they've never, the flags are going their way. The instant replays are going, this never happens. And then, boom, crash back down to reality. How much do you put on, and I know the Burrow gets the headlines, Mixon gets the headlines, but like, defensively, they were up 21-0.
Yeah.
And they could not get off the field over the weekend. Is that scheme? Is that personnel? Like, what are your thoughts on the defense?
Well, I think it's a little bit of, I think all those things that you said, Nick, I think are a part of it. I think they're, they didn't, I think they got four defensive linemen on injured reserve. That's a factor. But everybody's got somebody on injured reserve. So that's
everybody's injured. Yep, exactly.
That's not a reason. I think, to me, it is they're situational. And I think this gets back to not being together. This gets back to not having reps together. Because there have been implosions at the end of the halves that you just can't have. And I guess, the one in Philly was communication. That stuff is communication. And that's not repping, that isn't being that's not being together. But I mean, in 4 of the games, teams have just gone right down the field at the end of the half, and twice they've scored touchdowns in the last 16 seconds, and you just can't have that. Now, is that, the one in Philly was a breakdown of communication. The one last week was the guy just got flat out beat. I mean, Rivers made a great throw. Should they have been in press man at that point in the ballgame? I don't know. All I know is Rivers threw it on the dime. They shouldn't have been on the 17. I know that. So, I think a lot of it is, new guys. I mean, you get, 2 nickel rookie backers on the field. You get no pressure from the inside because all those guys are hurt. And the corners didn't play well. The corners and then playing with, these are corners they didn't think they were going to be playing with. They thought they were going to be playing with Will Jackson and Trey Waynes, and they're not. Waynes isn't playing, and they're playing with their double teaming LaShawn Sims with Darius Phillips. That wasn't the plan, and then they didn't play well Sunday, flat out. So I think it's what you mentioned 2 things, personnel and scheme, and I think that's probably, that's in the NFL, when there's a problem, there's not one reason.
Perfectly said. So, Geoff, what has me banging my head against the wall every year is, there's always this overwhelming voice from the fans of, it's one person's fault, right? Like in the past, we could say it was Marvin's fault. It's always Mike
Andy
Brown's
Dalton.
fault at some level, they say, or Andy Dalton, right? And so, I had differing opinions at draft time than a lot of people. And so I definitely am not one of those people that's like, oh, we just need to sign this one person or make this one trade and the Bengals are there. But on the flip side of that, the trade deadline's coming, and if you could wave your magic wand, what areas would you look for improvement?
Well, I wouldn't want to give up
anything
worth anything at the trade deadline, but I do think, they can bulk up inside on both lines. I think there's no question about that. I think they have to look at, to me, the next draft, if they drafted every spot was an offensive lineman or defensive lineman, that'd be pretty good. But I think that's where, you start. I mean, that's really no revelation. That's the AFC North. you know, but I do think that that's where, but you're not going to get anybody like that now. You're not going to get anybody that's going to help you now, you know, and like, you know, I'm not sure they'd trade anybody. I mean, I think they'd probably rather take their, I certainly wouldn't trade a free agent now, I don't think, because you'd probably get more with the compensatory pick, I would think.
Yeah. What about a guy like Ross that's publicly asking?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, what are you going to get for him?
Right.
Who's going to ask for him?
Huh? I'm sorry?
And that's the other thing. You got to have a market for him. Like, what team really wants that?
Right. Now, believe me, I think he's a great talent. And I think somebody would probably, I think he'll probably get a pretty good deal in free agency. So if you're the Bengals, what are you going to get now? Whereas if you wait and, you know, I bet that compensatory pick would probably be higher than what you get now, right? But I think Ross is a fine player. And I unfortunately, he never seemed to they picked him, and then that's the last time they seemed to be high on him, because Marvin always seemed to be in Marvin's doghouse, and it's just never seemed to. I mean, it was too in the injuries. I think Zach was high on him right away. Remember, early last year he was terrific in the first 4 games he played in Zach's offense. I mean, he was averaging almost 23 yards a catch, and then he got hurt in Pittsburgh, and then he never really got back. So. And now it seems like, he played 1 snap Sunday. So it seems like, most of these snaps are going toward AJ Boyd and T. And I don't know what they got planned for him. I know he's a hell of a player. I would also think that that's another reason they don't want to unload him is, you need depth, I mean, and you get AJ already had the hammy flare up in the second half in Baltimore, so how much depth do you have behind? You don't have a hell of a lot of depth behind those 3 guys. So, I mean, that's the thing. People say, well, trade these guys, but, you need people to play,
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't know. I get, I get a lot of I still think John's going to make some kind of I still think Ross is going to have a couple of big games this year. I really do. I just think he's a talented guy who's been a bit star-crossed. But I just don't know. Anthony, I think the great questions about, potential trades. I'm sorry, Mickey was talking about trades. But I just don't think. I mean, what would they get?
Right.
And then I mean, somebody who's saying trade Carlos. Well, all their defensive linemen are banged up.
Mm-hmm.
And and I think Carlos will work through this. I think he'll adjust to what's going on. And I mean, he's a pro, and, it'd be interesting to watch, but, it's, that's how he came into the league. He came into the league. He was a 3rd down guy. Zimmer wouldn't start him. Remember, that was kind of a little bit of a soap opera too. Zimmer didn't start him until like his 3rd year.
Right.
And by then he already had like about 16 sacks. So, 15 sacks or something. So,
yeah.
I think, it's hard. You don't want a guy who's been a great player like that, a Pro Bowler, sack away from the franchise sack record. He doesn't want to hear that he's a part-time player. But,
right.
I think the coaches feel like they can take advantage of him, if he's playing, sometimes, a lot of times in this league, less is more.
True. Coming fresh. You mentioned, the snap counts for Ross, for Dunlap. I'm going to throw Atkins in there. Is there some, it seems odd as an outside observer that these guys aren't on the field more. Is that part of the changing of the guard, or is that part of there was no off season, and so people need to get into their game shape?
Well, no, I think Geno is hurt. I mean, I think, not hurt. He's obviously back, but I think I don't think they want him to blow out his shoulder. That's what it seems like to me. I think, like Lou said this yesterday to us, to the writers, if I could play him, 60, he said, if I could play him as much as I could, I would. So okay. I think Geno is a thing they're making sure, that they don't blow him out. Plus he's 32. So, you know what I mean? You can't, it's not like it was like 8 years ago with him. So you got to be a little careful there. Right. I think the other stuff is, I think Lou's just trying to move some pieces around and to see what's most productive. Like I said, I think it's a team, it's a defense that's in transition. There've been I think that you get a lot of young guys that are kind of ready. They're kind of itching to play. I'm looking in the front seven. The two rookie backers, obviously, but I think the fifth rounder from Notre Dame is ready to make a little run here. Khalid Kareem.
That's my guy.
He's flashed pretty good. He's flashed pretty well there, Nick. So I think he gets some snaps too. And it's interesting. I mean, it's trying to think back. I'm going to do a story later in the week about how. Look at this rookie class and how much it's produced so soon. I don't know if we have so many rookies produce so much so soon. When you take Burrow, Higgins, Wilson, and Davis Gaither, it's an interesting class.
Yeah.
Geoff, I guess my question's pretty short, but there's a lot of twists and turns to it. What I want to ask, look, Zach Taylor 1-11-1 in one-score games, right? I think the Bengals in their last 17 games are 0-16-1 on the road, and that dates back to Lewis, obviously, too. But you've got some of these guys, as Mickey mentioned, speaking out about playing time and their displeasure, wanting to be traded, all that kind of stuff. How long is the leash, and how high is the patience level from ownership with Zach Taylor? I think I look at this game this week. Cleveland comes to Cincinnati, and if the Bengals get run out of the building, we know how the Brown family feels about the Cleveland Browns. So I guess I'm not saying call for his head or anything like that. I just think a lot of fans are wondering how long the leash is and how committed they are to Zach Taylor's plan at this point, with so many things not going their way.
I mean. It's a good question, but you hit on a lot of good things, Anthony. There, that but I I think you hit on Mike stands by his coaches, and I would think he's going to give a guy with a rookie quarterback he gives a coach the longest leash in the league, and I would think with a rookie quarterback that leash is even longer, You'll know, you know what I mean? This is one of the things where, well, what's it going to take? And I just say, you'll know when it's, when, unfortunately, like with Marvin, you knew.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can't explain it. You can't quantify it. It's like, and I don't know, we're certainly not there yet. We're a long way from there yet, but, and I see the comparisons with Schuler's record and all that, and I get it. But this is a different game, and it's a different deal, and it's hard to compare. It's hard to compare that. Plus, Zach's doing it all too. I mean, I tip my hat to the guy. It's a guy who's doing all the. I mean, in this era of COVID, to be doing what he's doing, to run this team. You just need a guy. You just need a guy to be in charge of COVID. Never mind running a team. Never mind running an offense. Never mind calling the plays. I mean, this is a tough nut. This thing to get around, and I think they've done a pretty good job. And the fact that, I know you hear some chirping, but I'm not sure. See, and the other tough thing is we're not in the locker room. I got no feel for the locker room. I haven't interviewed a player in person this year. Maybe a couple, but I mean, but it's maybe one or two, but I don't know what the pulse of that room is. I got a tweet here, a tweet there. I'm not sure that's representative. I'm very careful. I'm very wary of social media, as you can tell, since I'm about 98 years old. I'm more comfortable reading about John Adams, I guess, than I am about reading the latest tweet. So that tells you where I am on that stuff. But I'm very wary about reporting off of Twitter.
So you weren't watching Carlos's Instagram feed last night?
I did not. I was interested though. I tried to find it. I struggled trying to log in, but you're able to find out. I mean, you're able to you can just and I call people who listen to it, and maybe I should be more involved, but maybe I shouldn't. I don't know. Vic Fangio says he's not on Twitter, and he's an NFL head coach, so that's pretty good.
Sometimes he's got the right idea.
Yeah, but
you're not missing much.
I mean, and Twitter's fine, but you got to realize it's hard to report off of that.
Right.
I mean, it's great to report what Twitter says, but I mean, to make 2, 3, I don't know. I'm not. it's hard to make conclusions off of that. Some guys are chirping. Does that mean the whole room is in an uproar? Does that mean he's losing the team? I don't think so. I don't think so. And I also think that Twitter is a reality of Zach has to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
And he has to he has to deal with it. And it's, can you imagine Lombardi dealing with Twitter?
Oh God.
It's just, it's amazing. And it's it's funny. Mickey was talking about, there's always somebody to blame. You can blame somebody. I wish we could get on the field. I wish we could have got on the field in April. Who do I blame for that? I don't know. I stayed in my house. I shut it down. I stayed in my house because I was hoping it would get us back on the field.
Mm-hmm.
But and I'm not saying anybody's to blame for that, but I think that's a reason. One of the reasons we are where we are is because we weren't able to do anything in the spring.
No,
and I guess that would be characterized under an act of God, right?
Right. I can't believe that we're nearly 40 minutes into this podcast, Geoff, and we haven't talked about AJ Green, right?
Yeah.
AJ Green.
There's a lot. That's in many ways.
For the first
good and bad, good and bad.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. For the first few weeks of the season was missing in action.
Right.
Not the AJ we've been used to seeing. And then we see a video of him surface of him, we think maybe saying trade me.
Yeah.
And then goes out against Indy and has a really good performance. Yeah. Finally. What happened?
I think you saw a guy. I think we saw it. I think we saw him. He had he called himself out on the Thursday before the game. And I've never seen a 7-time Pro Bowler, Hall of Fame candidate call himself out. That was a very powerful interview, I thought, on the media Zoom. And I thought, he was just it seemed like he was mad at himself. Now, maybe he doesn't like the way things are going. Obviously, he can't be happy, not getting any balls and you're not winning. Hell, that's been the story in football since the beginning, since Jim Thorpe didn't get the handoff. So, but the fact that the way he channeled that energy and took it out on the Colts. And I thought it showed great professionals. I thought it showed great professionalism. I thought it showed what a great competitor he is, and why I'm happy he's still a Bengal. It's. I also think we underestimated Nick. I also think we underestimated him coming back after 2 years.
Yeah.
Not
easy.
You just assume a guy can do that, and I think he had, and I think he admitted this early on that he was having trouble adjust to the new scheme. That was the first scheme he's had that was the first time he had changed schemes in his pro career. I think we underestimated that too. We just figured AJ Green, he can jump off a building in a single bound,
Yeah.
And the guy's human.
Yeah.
And he showed how human he was on Thursday, and he was terrific on Sunday. I just thought, I can't tell you. That was really, I thought, and it's been a tough year. They lost the game, but I thought that was one of his great moments.
Yeah, and for a guy, and for the first few weeks, we talked about it here on the show, Geoff, that it looked like, I don't want to say playing scared because I don't think that's accurate, but I think he was playing afraid to get injured, maybe because he has been so hurt and things have popped up that this weekend it almost felt like he was playing angry, playing to prove a point, and I thought it was fantastic, especially knowing that this Colts defense was number one in the NFL heading into that game, and AJ looked, I don't want to say he looked like the old AJ, but it was refreshing to see.
Yeah, he certainly didn't look like an old AJ. He certainly looked like like what we're accustomed to. And it's what got him going, I don't know. I think, I do think physically, I think he mentioned this too. And I think after he had the hammy in Baltimore, I think it was like something clicked, and he said, "Well, look, I'm going to be doing. If I don't unleash this thing, are going to be, playing like this all year, and I'm just going to unleash it. That's what it seemed like. That he just decided to the hammy be damned, that he was going to, but it is, when you live with when your body is your main source of, who you are, as an athlete, it's hard to throw, it's hard to, you're taking care of it, you're watching it, it's all you got. And, but it seemed like he was able to get over that. It seemed like he was able to get over that mentally, at least anyway. And, my hat's off to him, because he made some great, tough plays where he took shots, over the middle, the slant. That fourth down play was, that was a hell of a catch on 4th and 9. And, he knew he was going to take a shot.
Right.
He made one of those unbelievable Gene Kelly moves on a. Nobody knows who Gene Kelly is. Sorry. Who's the best dancer of this era? Anyway, he made one of those catches where he just toe tapped. I don't know how he does it. So, I don't know. It was. I don't know why it took so long, but it was. It's great to see. Will he keep it going? I don't know. Because so much depends on the people around you. But it was great to see. I just think he's a. He's not only a great player, he's a great guy, and it was good to see.
Yeah. Well, Geoff, I know you're a busy man. I don't want to keep you all night. If it was up to me, we'd keep you here the whole hour to talk Bengals with you.
This is better. This is better than having to watch Mookie play with the Dodgers for the World Series. I'll tell you.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the Browns, right? I mean, this will be a real test this weekend. A first time that Burrow has played a second opponent.
Yeah.
So he saw him back in week 2, had a really good game that night against the Browns.
Yeah.
What are your expectations heading into this game? They're obviously coming off a shellacking against Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
So what do you make?
Well, they're just going to run it down they're just trying to run it down the Bengals' throats, no DJ Rita. Gino doesn't seem to be, isn't playing full time yet. I mean, they're just going to try and run it down their throats. What they, there's no Chubb, but Hunt is there, and the other kid's playing pretty well, the other running back. So they will run the ball, and that's and if they can stop it, they get a shot. And if they give up another 170-yard day, it's a long day. They have their running game has to since Cleveland came back into the league, this series was defined on how the Bengals ran the ball. The Bengals, Corey Dillon, Rudy Johnson, Cedric Benson, all those guys, Jeremy Hill, just made their mark with 100-yard games, multiple 100-yard games against them. In fact, it was I want to say it was Joe Mixon's first 100-yard game was against Cleveland. And Baker Mayfield has taken over this rivalry though, 4-1, and he's I don't know what the deal is with Mayfield against the Bengals, because he doesn't look like that when he plays everybody else. He's got like a 102 passer rating against the Bengals. He's 85 against everybody else. He's 3-6 against Baltimore and Pittsburgh, 79% rating. He's complete. He averages, yards per throw are 7.3 for his career, but nearly 9 against the Bengals. So he's so they have to make bears. Like I was telling Dan Horde today on Lap, we were doing a thing for one of the shows, and it was, make Baker be Baker, don't turn him into Otto Graham, so this make him play like he usually does. You stop the run, you get a shot, because I do think they can move the ball on the Cleveland defense. They proved that the other day. They scored, the last time they played him, they moved the ball pretty consistently all night. They just couldn't stop the running game on the other side of the ball. But a guy, I think, this is another highlighted game for Jonah Williams, who I think has played very quietly, gotten better every game. He goes up against Garrett, and Garrett made the big play against them last time. He had the sack strip on the goal line. That was when he went inside on Fred Johnson, who was making his first NFL start at right guard. Now they have a new right guard in Alex Redmond, so that'll be interesting to see how they use Garrett. Will they have Mixon? I don't. They said. Zach said that was and this is where I get back with you're talking to Scott about offensive identity and play calling. If Mixon can't play, suddenly they're a different. Suddenly, okay, you might have to get 50 throws from Joe. suddenly they're a different offense. You know, I mean, Geo, I don't know, Geo's not going to give you a Mixon type 25 carry game. He can carry at 15 for you. You know, maybe they get the other 10 from Travion Williams. Maybe Joe plays, but he's limited. So it's a different, you know, that's just an example of how this thing changes. So, but I think I see Burrow having another good game against these guys, but it comes down to if they can keep, you know, I mean, since 2018, since Baker came in, they've run the ball down their throats. And that's why Baker has his numbers have been so good against these guys, because it's, you know, he's been able to hand it off and then just play action the heck out of him. So, yeah. Plus he's got the bruised ribs. Bengals are at home. You know, it's going to be a crowd there. Not, you know, it's only probably I think only 12,000. So, you know, I think it's they've had a history of you know, I think last year was 2018 was like the only time the Browns have swept the Bengals in like, geez, I want to say, you know,
been a while.
Yeah, I mean, so if trends continue, you know, Browns win at home and the Bengals win at home.
But you got to stop the run. I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, that's just the reality of it, man. I mean, that's you know, if you stone the run, Baker's not going to beat you.
Yep, I agree with that statement 100%.
You know, Baker's if the Bengals can't run and the Browns can't run, I give the edge to Burrow.
And Burrow had a good game the last time. I thought he played really well against the Browns, even though he got absolutely beat up that night.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. And he's you know, he's better now, even though that was last month. He's
and the line's improved.
He's 5 games better now.
Yeah, and the line has definitely improved over the last few weeks. So,
yeah,
Geoff, as always, man, I tell you what, I love talking football with you. You've been around the Bengals for a really long time. We can't thank you enough for being the first guest back here on Inside the Jungle. I know you've been working hard over at Bengals.com. What do you got in store this week, and what have you been working on?
Yeah, I hope you know, you're going to do the matchup of the game. I think I'm going to focus on Jonah and maybe how he's progressed the last 5 or 6 weeks. I think I matched him up against Joey Bozo, I think, in the opener, so kind of revisit him. He's quietly moving up those Pro Football Focus rankings, so try to work on that tomorrow at some point, then probably later in the week. Take a look at that rookie class. Just take a look at you know, Burrow and Higgins and Logan Wilson and Akeem Davis-Gaither and you know, Davis. You know, he's and then Kareem, because I think Kareem's probably going to play a lot. I think probably against Cleveland. Played 40% of the snaps, I think, on Sunday. He did get beat on one play. They got around him on one big run, but I think they've been pretty happy with the way he's played. So I'll probably take a look at that rookie class. You know, you know, you think back to some other rookie classes who were really great. They didn't have starts like this, like the 2006 class didn't have a start like this. The 2001 class didn't have a start like this. Maybe the closest would be AJ and Andy from 2011. Mm-hmm.
Well, Geoff, we look forward to reading that each and every week. You do a great job covering the team. We appreciate you being on the show, and we're looking forward to doing this a lot more often, buddy. We're glad to be back with you.
Hey, always great being with you guys. Really appreciate what you guys do. Thanks for reading, and thanks for all you do for the nation. And everybody stay safe. Stay safe on the West Coast, Anthony. And Mickey, Scotty, take care of yourself. Nick, keep up the good work, man.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. That's Geoff Hobson joining us here on Inside the Jungle, talking a little orange and black here. It's always a good time to check up with him and catch up with him. And I'll tell you what, a lot of fun. I couldn't think of a better guest to have for our first return back to the podcast. So we appreciate Geoff being on the show. All right, so it wouldn't be Inside the Jungle without a little bold predictions, shall we? So last week on the show, I said that the Bengals would win the turnover margin. That was my bold prediction, and I was correct there. They were +1 this weekend. If you take away Burrow's late interception, man, I was sitting pretty there, but it was a good week. I think, Scott, you mentioned John Ross was going to be active. That was your bold prediction, and you were correct. He got one massive snap in that game. So let's do a little bold predictions.
So Scott also nailed the score.
Did I?
Yeah.
Well
You
done
picked
by me.
31-27 loss, huh?
Yep.
Look at you, Nostradamus. He's not just a beard, folks.
There's a lot of magic in that beard.
It's not just magic in there, Mickey. There's a lot in there.
So give us your bold prediction for Sunday.
Yeah, you
Oh
go.
man, you caught me off guard. I kind of forgot all about bold predictions. Well, let's see. I was looking here at the stats from that last game. They gave up only 3 sacks, but 8 quarterback hits. I'm going to go back to the old well there on the sacks. I thought the offensive line played pretty well last week against what's been a really good Indy defense. I will go back to the well with 0 sacks for the offensive line this week
Against the Browns' vaunted pass rush.
Yes.
Interesting. That it would be a bold prediction. I agree with you there. All right, AC, your bold prediction?
Bengals win by 2 touchdowns.
He's not messing around tonight, folks. 2+ touchdowns.
Nope. I got a feeling about this one. I don't know what it is. I just I don't think Mike Brown wants this team to lose at home. So I think they're pissed off. So and they seem to sometimes get right against the Browns. So that's where I'm going with it.
Joe Burrow wakes up feeling dangerous, AC.
That's right. Oh, Baker. Oh God, that guy.
Bill Williams in our chat says bold predictions. No trades, no firings for the upcoming week. I like that. Mickey, give me your bold prediction.
I think Burrow goes for 365.
All right. What did he have last time against the Browns?
317 or something like that.
316.
I know he was over 300, obviously.
Yeah.
61 passes. Wow.
Yeah, that might be where I go with my bold prediction. If Joe Mixon doesn't play this weekend, I am afraid we might see 60 dropbacks again for Joe Burrow. I love Gio, but I was just even watching him run the football over the weekend. It looks different, right? Mixon's a little more sharp, a little more quick. Gio's a solid third down back, but I don't know. I don't think he can. And Geoff was talking about, you got to be able to run the football to alleviate that pressure on Joe. And I don't think Gio's that guy who can run the ball 25 times. Maybe for one game, but if this is going to be an extended period, I have a hard time seeing that. So my bold prediction is that Burrow will have at least 50 dropbacks. 50 big. He's going to put up a 50 burger.
I don't know if that's ideal.
No, I agree with you. I don't think it's ideal either.
It's possible though, for sure.
It's certainly possible. Perry in the chat room says his bold prediction is Bengals lose. Burrow gets knocked out for the season. Perry, come on. What are you doing? He must be a Browns fan watching
Don't
this.
bring that juju here.
Jeez. I mean, I'm all for going bold, but Ben says Gio is our best blocker. Yeah, so he might get a lot more snaps just because of the fact he can help protect. There's no question about that. Those are our bold predictions. Of course, if you want to leave us your bold predictions, if you're listening after the fact, you can hit us up inside the jungle pod at gmail.com. Of course, hit us up on Twitter as well at Inside Jungle Pod. Should we do some shout outs this week, gents? Did you even prepare shout outs? I've got one at least. AC, you're shaking your head. Why don't you give us a shout out?
Yeah, I've got 2. One is from a gentleman whose show took the air a little bit before we came on the air. Bengal Jim Foster. He's like kind of the fan ambassador of the Bengals. Really good guy. I mentioned last week that Dalton, who I shouted out last week. I also met Jim in Seattle last year, and great guy. Really cool fan ambassador of the Bengals. And then I also see my buddy Ace Boogie from New Stripe City in the live chat watching us. So those are my 2 shout outs. Good
one. Mickey, you got one?
I don't this week. I did not prepare. I was just looking through my Twitter trying to grab one. So I'm gonna throw out our boy Kodakai one more time, right? I haven't seen him today, but
Cody Toomey,
yeah. I miss him tonight. That's what I'm gonna shout out to him.
I'm sure if he was watching us live in the chat room, he would be telling us that Zach Taylor's got to go. That's kind of where he's at the moment.
So talking to Hobson, does he change any of your feelings the way he talks about it? Like, as he's telling us things, I'm going through and I'm just looking at the offense, right? And you're looking at Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Drew Sample, Jonah Williams, Michael Jordan, Fred Johnson, all 1 and 2 year guys, right? That's pretty significant. No offseason. I don't know. I do get a little bit different perspective with some of his thoughts. So I don't know. It's interesting.
I think there's a lot going on, right? Like, if it was just the games and the close losses, yes. But when you're getting the chirping, I think that piling on certainly is not helping the case, right? Like, I think when you're seeing players actively speak out that we don't normally see do that, that kind of raises some eyebrows, right? So I don't know if I don't think it's necessarily all on Zach Taylor, right? Like, look, the defense gave up 31 points after being up 21-0. Like, yeah. Zach Taylor's not calling the defensive plays.
Right.
Right? Did the play calling get conservative there in the second half? Sure, maybe. But, like, at some point the defense got to make a stop, and that's on your D coordinator, right? So I'm not absolving Zach Taylor of any of this. Don't get me wrong, but there are multiple layers to this story for sure. So
the other thing I find interesting is every single guy that I can think of that's done the quote unquote chirping over the last 2 years, every single guy was a Marvin guy.
No, it's
every single guy was a guy brought in by Marvin Lewis. And so that's something to kind of consider, if you want to back Zach, that's something that definitely plays in his corner, right? I mean, if he's not playing favorites, or maybe he is with his guys, but that's something that just kind of stuck out like a sore thumb to me when I saw all the names of people that are chirping. They're not guys you brought in.
Not only are they Marvin's guys, but they are guys that are older and not producing.
Yep.
I mean, you got to go with the guys that are making plays on the field. And I'm sorry, that game was there for the taking this weekend for your pass rushers to just obliterate Phillip Rivers, and they couldn't get to him. So at some point, these guys, they got to play the guys that are going to make the plays. Scott, you got a shout out?
I do. A good follow on Twitter, Bengals captain. I'm giving him a shout out for the fact that he has to be the most optimistic Bengals fan for sure, if not the most optimistic person that I've never met in my life.
But you feel like you know him, don't you?
I do feel like I know him. And as a Bengals fan that has lots of doom and gloom surrounding this franchise, he's a glass of cold water of optimism. Maybe a little too optimistic at times, but I have to give credit to anyone that can be a huge fan of this franchise and have the level of optimism that he has. It's impressive. It's as impressive as his Captain Obvious outfit and beard. And so shout out to Bengals captain this week.
My shout out this week, and you guys might remember him from the previous show, but there was a gentleman who would call in every so often. And no, I'm not talking about John from Kentucky, although I wonder where he's at. Do you guys remember Airport Kurt?
Oh, yeah.
Kurt Campbell.
Carolina.
That's right. Down in North Carolina. He used to work at the airport. He would call us from the airport to talk about the Bengals. I remember playing Tecmo Bowl with him on your bus, Mickey, tailgating before a game. I sent him a message this week on Twitter. I'm like, hey, man, we're back, right? He was like, what? So I told him, like, look, we're back. So he was shocked to hear that. So Kurt Campbell down in North Carolina, whose wife is a Browns fan. I feel so sorry for you, buddy. He's a big Bengals fan down there. So Kurt, that's your shout out. If you want to get shouted out on the show, make sure you hit us up Inside Jungle Pod on the Twitter and let us know. We'll certainly shout you out during the show. Don't forget, you can rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts. Head on over to just do a search for Inside the Jungle on Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating and review. Of course, I wasn't prepared and did not have the most recent rating. So if you did leave one this past week, thank you for doing that. I'll make sure that I read them next week here on the show. All right, let's do a little score predictions. We know Anthony's going for a 2-score victory or I should say 14-point victory for the Browns this weekend. Bengals over the Browns, Anthony. So, since you're going so bold, I'll lead off with you. What's the score prediction?
I guess I gotta stick with my bold prediction on that. I'll say 31-17 Bengals.
All right. We have an update in the chat room from Perry. Not a Browns fan. He says, for the record, I'm a Bengals fan. I predicted that Burrow would not make it past Halloween after week 2. Okay. They're clearly not happy with the offensive line play and the amount of abuse Joe Burrow is getting.
No, he's talking about the other guy we have, Barrows.
Barrows.
Oh,
I'm okay if Barrows goes down.
Yeah, we don't need him.
no. I cleaned it up for Perry. All right, Mickey, give me your score prediction.
I have a feeling this is going to be a game similar to what we saw in 04. I don't know if you remember that game.
Wasn't it like 59-49 or something like that?
58-48. I don't think we're going to get there, but I think there's going to be some scoring. And so I'm going to have the Bengals at 45, the Browns at 42.
Wow. Does Randy Cavs hit the game winner at the end?
And see, that's the only part that I'm questioning in this whole thing. He's missed 2 pretty important kicks. So
don't even get me. I've been wanting to bring this up for a freaking hour, right? So thanks to all these guys chirping on social media, the narrative. I bet you Randy Cavs is sitting back going, man, I'm so glad these guys are chirping. All this pressure's off me for missing a crucial kick in the fourth quarter that eventually costed the Bengals a chance to kick a game winner, which he probably would have missed at the end anyway. But still, like, he's getting off scot-free here.
Yeah.
Randy Cavs getting off scot-free here, dang it.
I would have felt different driving that last drive, only needing 1 point instead of 4.
Right. Now you're forcing Burrow to make passes downfield because you missed a field goal in the fourth quarter. And it's one of those things where you watch him kicking. I mean, he made one earlier in the game, and you're like, all right. I think he actually made 2 earlier in the game, and you're thinking, all right, maybe we got this out of the way. Like, he's over it. And then sure enough, clank. You laugh, Anthony, but he's getting off scot-free with all these guys chirping.
I'm laughing because you're correct. I'm laughing because that's a great point. I didn't even think about it, but he's actually been really good statistically this year. The 2 misses have just been absolutely critical misses, and it's a microcosm of the entire team. It's like, oh, they played pretty well, but there was this huge mistake. Oh, the offense did this, but the defense let up. So it's just like it's just a microcosm of everything going on, and of course he clanks that one off the upright there. It's like, oh God.
For the record, I'm not saying Randy Cavs lost the game for the Bengals this weekend, right? I mean, the defense, you got to make a stop. You just have to. And by the way, they won the turnover differential. They had 2 turnovers that they forced this weekend. How often in the Marvin era did we see the Bengals have a positive turnover margin and lose? It was rare. That was like one of the things you could almost count on. When they were plus in the turnover margin, they usually won. So anyway, I got sidetracked because I wanted to bring up Randy Cavs. Scott, you picked the score correct last weekend. What do you got this week?
I'm starting to wonder. You've brought this conspiracy theory in. I'm starting to wonder. You think Randy Cavs is in the locker room hacking people's Twitter? Maybe we're going to hear this week that Sean Williams, Darius Phillips, and Carlos Dunlap all claiming their Twitters and Instagram got hacked. And Bullock sitting over there just giggling,
eating away,
with both calves sitting in an ice bath.
Oh man, that's crazy talk. I tell you. What do you got for a score, buddy?
Score wise, okay. I'm kind of with Anthony here. I feel a double-digit win. Looking back at that game earlier in the year, there was a bunch of points, 35-30. It was a good game. I'm going to go something similar. I'll say 34-24 Bengals, double-digit win this week. Not quite as high as a point total as Mickey's going with, but 34-24.
I just hope if they could stop the run, I could see the Browns only scoring 24. I didn't get a chance to look at the defensive stats from Indy. They held they held Indy under 100 yards rushing. But then again, Indy got so down so far, they couldn't run the ball. They needed a throw to get back into the game. So that might be why the Bengals limited them on the rushing yard standpoint. But, man, I really hate losing to the Browns. I hate Baker Mayfield. The only thing I like about Baker Mayfield is I somewhat find his progressive commercials funny. Somewhat.
They are solid.
I hate watching him play football, though. I absolutely freaking can't stand that dude. So I'm hoping that the Bengals can win. God, I really don't want them to sweep. So I'll go Bengals win in a high scoring affair as well. I'll go 38-35. They get to win. And I can't believe it, Randy Bullock. I said your name correct. You hit the game winner. I can't believe I did that. Oh, well. We want to hear from you. If you're watching us live here on the show, put in your score predictions. We'll share some of them here. Oh, my goodness. A lot of fun this week talking Bengals football here on Inside the Jungle. Make sure you, again, get subscribed to the show so you don't miss a single episode. We do this show every Tuesday night at 9 o'clock right here on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. So if you can't watch us live like our good friend Stephen Reed up in Canada, you can always catch the podcast after the fact, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. We're on Google Podcasts now. I don't know if anybody uses that, but if you do, now you can get the show there as well. Gentlemen, you got any final thoughts before we get out of here? I will start with you, Mickey. As always, it's been a pleasure talking Bengals with you.
Oh, yeah, it was fun. It was fun tonight. It did fly really, really fast.
Always
tonight.
does.
Yeah.
Can you imagine when we get phones, what's going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, we're getting the marathon shows again. Yeah, no real final thought. I know the spread is 3 in favor of the Browns. I think the Bengals passing game is coming on strong. I want to see the line hold up, and so I'm going to cross my fingers for the game.
Mark Young in the chat says 35-27 Cincinnati. So 3 points is the spread, huh, Mick?
Yep.
I think that's a pretty Vegas seems to know what they're doing.
Yeah, they're not far off.
No, they're really not. Anthony, you got any final thoughts this week?
No, just in all the noise of all the Bengals players talking, and a lot of fans are calling for Zach Taylor. I just kind of came to the realization again today that this is a process, and I think the Bengals are going to take into consideration the past 2 off seasons that Zach Taylor's had to endure. Yeah. And there are a lot of young players on this team, a lot of injuries. I hate using those excuses, but that's kind of the reality of it. And I think they want to see this thing through and give him at least another year with Burrow. Finish this year out for sure and see where that goes. And then I think they're going to give him another year with Burrow just to kind of see the growth there. So for those that may be calling for, that's just my opinion, but for those calling for Zach, I don't see that coming anytime soon. Yep. Geoff corroborated that tonight.
Unfortunately, I agree with you there, AC. Appreciate you being on the show as well. This is from Brian on Facebook. He says 28-14 Browns. Hate to say it, but defensive line for Browns is going to kill the offensive line. This is a different offensive line that played in week 2, right? I mean, Alex Redmond, as much as we joke about the penalties, which again had a couple this weekend, they have gotten better with him at right guard. So there is that. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the line holds up against this vaunted Browns front. And then Ben in the chat says the last 2 coaches to get swept by the Browns were canned. So there is that. He's
on that kick. I'm going to rub it in Brian's face when the Bengals win this one.
Do you know Brian?
Yeah, I do. And I'm glad,
okay.
I'm glad he's listening. Yeah.
All right, Scott. Final thoughts as we head out?
Yeah, it was good talking with Geoff, like always. I'll say this. I've stuck up for Zach Taylor a lot, both on this show, in my Bengals Day text strings. I came crashing down off that chip this week. Watching them against the Colts, I was all in, get him out of here. I'm done. With the play calling, with the guys chirping on Twitter. Geoff talked me off that ledge a little bit today.
For at least a week, right?
For at least for the week until I see another Samaj Piran 3rd and 1 call.
Fullback dive, baby.
Fullback dive. No one saw it coming.
Only works in Tecmo Bowl, right, Mickey?
Including P-Ron. So, but yeah, it's good. Like always, good catching up with Geoff. Good to get some perspective of someone that's, around, not physically around the team like he has been in the past this year, but, has that pulse to the team to get some perspective.
Well said, Scott. Appreciate you being on the show, buddy.
You bet.
My final thoughts. Again, I'm so, as much as we put it off for years, like I'm really glad. I say it. I feel like I end the show every week talking about how glad I am to be back here doing this. Right, like even just talking with Geoff, just man, it was awesome. Like I could talk to that guy about the Bengals for hours. It's too bad we're not doing it in person with beers and hanging out at a bar somewhere watching the game. But yeah, I really appreciate him being on the show and really glad that he was the first one that we had come back. I know we interviewed a lot of great guests over the years, so we're looking forward to do more and more of those. So we want to know who you want to hear from. Let us know insidethejunglepod@gmail.com. So that way we can reach out to some of those folks. If there's anybody in particular you want to hear from, we'll certainly do our best to make that happen. Gentlemen, as always, appreciate you being on the show. That is going to do it for the episode 5 of Inside the Jungle. For Scott Bantel, Anthony Cosenza, and Mickey Mentzer, I'm Nick Serberling. We'll see you all next week. Hoo day, everybody.
Hoo day.
Hoo day.